Hello and welcome to the first round of the Phoenix eSports F4 Cup at Oulton Park. It's great to have you on board. You're joined by myself, Joel, and Thomas Merritt as your commentary team for this evening. And have we got an action-packed evening for you? 25 drivers that'll be going toe-to-toe for the Phoenix eSports Championship title. Now, in terms of prizes, now that's something that we want to speak about. Prizes for the F4 World Series here, which are some really exciting bits and bobs. So for first place, we have the 15 Newton meter Camus direct drive wheel. Second place for the championship will receive a Phoenix Sim Racing DDU. And third place will receive a PSR Race Logic lap timer. So some really great prizes to get involved in. We have a capped grid. So this is going to be incredibly interesting. Thomas, how are you getting on? You excited, ready for the race season?
Yes, indeed. For myself, going into this season for the Fiesta Junior Championship, for feeling prepared as always. And obviously for tonight, some good commentary to be doing over the off season, and I can't wait to get into it. I mean, looking at the practice times, so the top five are separated by 7/10. I think we're in for a real treat, like you said, and especially with those prizes up for grabs. Everyone's going to be going for those audacious moves and quick lap times.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, just looking at the practice times, you've probably got the best part of 17, 18 drivers that are all within just over a second of one another. You know, these are F4 cars, so it's going to be interesting to see what they can do. I think potentially there's been some people that have been sandbagging over the course of the practice sessions, but it'll be interesting to see what they do, I suppose. So free practice is just about to come to an end, and then the guys will start their qualifying sessions. So now it's time for the drivers to see what they can do and really show their true pace, I suppose.
Yes, indeed. Obviously, the first couple of laps, I had a little go myself to see what the tyres were like. And it takes a little while for the tyres to come in. I would say potentially 2 laps, and then you only really get one or two shots at your lap time. So it's going to be really critical for these drivers to not make any mistakes and hit their marks and get some good lap times in early, especially with the tightness and the nature of this circuit. I think traffic's going to be a real issue as well.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right there. I think one of the key things with this track is it's been incredibly bumpy, right? And I think you noticed that yourself within doing a couple of laps around the circuit. It seems like potentially these guys are going to be able to do maybe one warm-up lap and one push lap before they're going to have to come in on these soft tyres. Now there are 3 tyre compounds available for these drivers to use across the race and qualifying. So it'll be interesting to see who can put it on pole position as we see Jacob Gannon right now just warming his tyres up, getting himself ready. Kyle's decided to push himself right out the front there, get some clean air. It'd be interesting to see what it's like in the dirty air of the other cars. I don't know if you had any go of that, Thomas, and did you manage to tuck him behind any cars? What was it like if you did?
Yeah, the tow was it's not, especially if you've got different sort of abilities through the corners. The actual difference between making it up on the straights, which there is a gain, but then is it an overall net gain if you catch them up on the corners? But yeah, I mean, the tow is going to help in these cars, just pushing the air away from the actual car itself. So yeah, we'll wait and see if anyone tries to do that, especially as well as we've got a few teams in there. We've got World Sim Racing who potentially are working together, and like you say, Kyle has been looking quick throughout the practice, and he's just getting on with it at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see what these guys' first laps are.
Yeah, I must admit, it's going to be interesting to see what the HFT drivers can do, especially. They've come from various race backgrounds, they've worked together well as a team, they know that they're proven race winners. So it'd be interesting to see how they stack up against potentially some very strong race teams that have come in that want to win this championship. And albeit from the practice lap times, I think Alexander Link is probably one of the ones to watch out for me. He came in and did 9 laps of practice in the practice server and managed to dethrone Kyle, that was sat on top of the practice server for a fair while actually, and beaten by 2/10. So it'd be interesting to see what comes of it. As we see Johnny Ogden popping a 1 minute 20. We're starting to see the quicker times come down now, and Kyle's just put it straight into the wall. Wow, it just goes to show that bump on T2 there, catching him out just a little bit. Quite interesting stuff, actually. Let's just keep an eye on him for now, as he got damage on the car. He's probably going to have to bring that one back to the pits, I would have thought. How did you find the bumps, Thomas, when you were doing some laps around the track?
Yeah, that's certainly interesting. It's going to be interesting for the drivers over a course of a 20-minute race to try and avoid these little mistakes that can creep in, especially as fatigue and concentration starts to lack towards the end of the race. But as you see there, Kyle, one of the most experienced and quick drivers on the grid, it just goes to show how easy the mistakes are. And that bump, like you say, on the exit of T2 and through the chicane that he's just going through now, it really bites hard. So the drivers are going to have to definitely watch out for that tonight, and especially with the tightness of the circuit in the races. If you're on the outside at T2, then that's certainly going to be a risky move. So we'll see how the drivers play that one.
Yeah, for sure. And look, Carl's holding it down with a 19.168 currently, but we've got Alexander Link that's coming in with a 19.3 for his first lap. So it'll be interesting to see what we can do from here. 4 drivers already in the 19s, which we didn't see in qualifying, which is quite interesting. And then a larger portion of the guys all in the 1 minute 20s and 1 minute 21. So be interesting to see how many people can improve on their times. Looks like Alexander's going a little bit slower on this lap, so he's probably bailed out of this one. 8 tenths down just through sector 1 alone, so he's probably warming his tyres up again. Just trying to get an understanding and a feel of how the car's handling, how it's performing. Bear in mind, it's the first time they've gone out on a practice session. Since practice, they've not been able to go out into a race situation. As you see, Carl Felvis dive back into the pits there, potentially with some damage, so hopefully he can get himself back out and get himself potentially on the front row of the grid.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Kyle's a couple tenths off what he did in practice. He was down to an 18.9 at the very end there, so it's interesting to see, like you say, potentially those tyres couldn't have come in, or traffic could have played a part, you don't know. But yeah, Alexander's one to watch out for as well, just a tenth and a half between them. It's certainly going to prove to be a good race, and then Cristiano in P3 is only 4 tenths back, so it'll be interesting to see how the session develops and if anyone improves or not.
Yeah, for sure. Just watch Johnny Ogden here, making his way from P6. Looks like he's not on his flying lap just yet. Just tucked in there. Andrea Rugi on his flying lap now, so let's see what he can do. He's quick in terms of practice. So let's just have a look and see where he's at here. Is there anyone lighting up the sector times for you on your screen there?
Cristiano just finished his last lap, improved by 2 tenths. He's down to a 19.4 with a purple sector 3. So he's coming into it. Alexander in P2 has done a purple sector 2. He's going to come across the line. It is going to be an improvement. There's going to be under a tenth separating them. So as the session develops, with only 3.5 minutes to go now, the times are coming down.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, actually. P7 all the way down to, P14 are separated by what realistically is probably 5 tenths of a second. So we know this is going to be quite tight racing, small pockets of drivers that are going to be holding their own. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do in the race and how quickly they can make up some time. So we've gone with Thomas Potter here. It looks like he's had a difficult sector 1 and sector 2. So he might be setting himself up almost on a cool down to then go out on his flying lap again. So let's see what we can do here. We drive on board of him. Great camera angle here through the... Oh, and he's gone wide and spun that straight into the wall there. That's a difficult one, and we know that's been catching drivers out as well. So he'll be looking to try and recollect that, get himself back into the pits, get the car fixed up, and then potentially go out for one more flying lap if he's got the time to do so. It's going to be tight, but he should be able to make it.
Yeah, indeed. You can see there on my timing screen, Alessandro in P5. Boy, he's timed down ever so slightly, not enough to gain a position, but the drive's really pushing on now. Kyle in P1 improved by half a tenth there with the purple sector 3. So it's really interesting to see these drivers still pushing on with only 2.5 minutes to go.
Yeah, 100%. Top 2 separated by just over a tenth of a second here, so it looks like Kyle and Alexander are going to be the ones to keep an eye on, potentially for the pole position. But let's not count out Cristiano Bettini. who's not too far off either, only 2/10 off, 3/10 off, sorry, than from Kyle Felvers himself. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do and if he can pull a lap out. Just looking back down the grid here, people are starting to put in their times now. So got a minute 45 left of qualifying. It's really going to be a last-ditch attempt to see what they can do. It's going to be make or break it, I think.
Yeah. See there, Alessandro. Oh, he was up in sector 1. Had a bit of traffic in sector 3 in the final corner. So imagine he's going to be quite disappointed with that. But nonetheless, he's still P5. So still a good position to start the race. Alexander with a decent sector 1 and sector 2. See if he makes any improvements.
So in terms of your in terms of
yeah,
your
1
real
minute
life
to go
racing,
now.
in terms of your real life racing, in terms of you setting up qualifying laps and things like that, what sort of thing goes through your mind? What are you thinking about? Is it getting the tyres into the peak window? Is there certain things that you're thinking about as you're doing that, or is it just a case of get out, get a lap down, get the tyres scrubbed in, and away you go?
Yes, that's a very good question actually. So before we go out for each session, my team have a little discussion, especially around a circuit, for example, like Thruxton. The toe is extremely important, so we're trying to plan, who's going to be at the front of the queue, and then when we drop back, so that they can get the advantage as well. So sometimes we have a toe, sometimes we don't. And then I think my main goal for qualifying is to go out, get the tyres as warm as possible, as quickly as possible, especially around a circuit like Snetterton, where the laps are 2.5 minutes, so you haven't got that many laps. You need to build in the temperature very quickly, so you're pushing from the very start. And then from there, it's just hitting your marks every single lap, trying to bring that time down. If I don't really get in a train with anyone at the beginning, I don't tend to wait. I just tend to keep going because you've only got 15 minutes, so it's a bit of a sprint almost. And then all you can do is focus on your lap times, not focus on anyone else. Depending on what circuit it is, we come in halfway through the session to lower the tyre pressures just to bring it back into its operating window. And then you come in and see where you end up. So yeah, that's basically what goes through my mind. It can vary with red flags, etc. But overall, that's how I would treat it.
Well, it's Kyle Felvers that takes pole with a commanding 119.3. Second place with Alexander Link with a 119.2. And then, as we thought, Cristiano Bertini didn't manage to improve and moved on to 119.4. So this grid's sizing up quite nicely. There's a lot of drivers incredibly quick here, a lot of race teams. It'd be interesting to see what they can do for the race. But we're going to move on now to a message from our sponsor. Okay, well, we were going to speak to Carl Felvers, but for some reason there seems to be a slight technical issue with bringing him in. So we are going to dive straight across to the grid to get ready for the race. And Thomas, who's your money on, I suppose, for this first sprint?
I mean, you would have to say Kyle or Alexander, but I just don't know. It's so close, with everyone being within a couple tenths of each other down the grid, and accidents and these bumps playing a part. It seems to be catching a lot of drivers out. So I really don't think we can call it till the last lap, depending on how the race pans out. But I would have to say either Kyle or Alexander, just because their pace has been rapid throughout. But you never know.
I think that's one of those things, isn't it? I think we need to have a look at in terms of people's pace, where they're at. I mean, qualifying's one thing, right? But when it comes to the race situation, how much race pace have they got? How consistent are they? Are they going to be able to put that down lap after lap? It'd be interesting to see the tyre choices that people go for here, whether it's the medium or the hard tyre that they try and push with. I would have thought for the race itself, it's probably going to be probably a mix-up between the two. Some people might be able to make the medium tyre work well. Others might be able to make the hard tyre work well. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see across the board the split that there is. You might see that from your side on your timing tower. What sort of tyre choices are people going for?
Like you say, it's a real mix between the mediums and the hards. So you've got the leader is on. I mean, it's still saying all softs at the moment because it hasn't quite updated yet. But yeah, like you say, I think there's going to be a real mix, and people are going to be. Yeah, it's going to be close, and I think depending on how the tyre choice work, it would just be really interesting to see how those medium runners will be able to drag out the tyres and how the hard tyres might come into effect later on in the race.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. There might be some mind games here, and I'm going back to, when I was racing myself in previous championships. There's several drivers here that raced alongside myself in those championships, and a lot of the time it's mind games. They'll wait till the very last minute to join the grid and make their tyre choice, and for some of them they might make their tyre choice maybe 5 seconds before the actual race start, just to make sure that people don't see what they're going for, what they think potentially is the preferential choice. So it'd be interesting to see where we go from here. I'm gonna guess that most drivers will pin for the hards and try and make them work, but there might be a few that think they might be able to just make those mediums last throughout the duration of the session, and maybe take it easy at the start and then bring themselves into the right window towards the end. So it'd be interesting to see what people do here. Carl's obviously got a very good opportunity here from the front with some clean air, but that doesn't mean to say that people like Alexander, people like Cristiano, people like Lorenzo Center, who's another one there in the mix, a lot of these drivers are all very close in terms of lap time. So it'd be interesting to see the race pace, being the first race of the season, to know what they're going to be able to do. And what sort of times they're going to put in consistently.
Indeed. Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point there about the consistency. Like you say, these bumps and these little mistakes that can creep in over a 20-minute race. 20 minutes is a lot longer than you actually think. So, especially in these F4 cars when everything's coming at you so quickly, and your reactions have to be pinpoint. So, yeah, I think it's going to be the person that just, slots in, takes it easy, nice and easy at the beginning of the race, and then really goes for it in the last 5-6 minutes. I think they're going to be the ones that will potentially come out on top. But again, you never know.
Yeah, and let's not forget. Look, these cars are open wheel. There is the possibility of some big high stakes crashes if people don't put themselves in the right positions. Right, there may be someone that goes for a bit of a cheeky move up the inside or anything like that, and that could cause a big crash. So the guys are going to be guys and girls are going to have to be incredibly careful, just in terms of where they position their cars, because there could be someone here starting P15, P16, P17 that can make their way up the grid pretty quickly. So we obviously hope for a nice and clean first corner, but you never know. Racing is racing, so anything can happen. Don't count your chickens just yet. As you hear all the guys revving their cars up, getting them ready to go, everyone locking in and getting into the zone. It's definitely going to be an interesting one. I'm excited. I want to see what everyone can do, and see if anyone's been sandbagging so much that they might suddenly pull out a few curveballs in the middle of the race.
100%, like you say. Really looking forward to this one. It's nice to not be on the stressful end of the gridding up, which is always nice. And yeah, just here to watch some good action. But I think this circuit is one of the tightest on the entire calendar. And like you say, with these bumps, one of the bumpiest circuits on the calendar, tightest circuits on the calendar, especially into that chicane as well with the tyre stacks. It's a difficult challenge for the drivers. So it'll be interesting to see how their mental state as well approaches this race.
Yeah, for sure. And look, like you said before, we've got a number of race teams that joined into this. So we haven't just got individual privateers. We've got a bunch of guys and girls here that are, working together. And towards the back end of this championship, that might actually play quite a pivotal role in deciding the championship standings. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they can do. Quite interesting to see, the likes of Thomas Potter, Johnny Ogden, Adam Lyle, sort of mid-pack. We know they've all got pace. Catherine Potter there in P20. It's normally qualifying slightly further higher up the grid. So it makes me wonder, potentially, did people get impeded during qualifying? It's a short lap. Did people just not manage to get the laps in when they really needed to make it count? I suppose in these cars, it's incredibly difficult.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point as well, and especially when I was testing yesterday, just getting a feel for them, the track limits as well. You got all these factors, track limits, impeding, the bumps, and the mistakes that can creep in. It was a tough qualifying, and only 10 minutes to do it. I mean, you do an outlap, you're already down to 8 minutes. So I think that all the drivers have done extremely well in the qualifying, even just to get a half decent lap in. To be honest with you. But like we say now, we got double the time in this race, so drivers can just settle into it nice and early, and in 1 minute we'll begin the exciting action.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it. So yeah, a minute left to go. Drivers are probably knuckling down now. They're locking in. They're getting focused. They know what they need to do for this race. It's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top off the back of this. And we pray for a very clean first corner. We have got 22 drivers on the track now. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see. It's great to see all the different liveries on the cars as well, as they all line up on the grid. There's a great mix here. But the next 30 seconds or so before the start of the race is definitely going to be an interesting one for the guys and girls out there. Just to see, are nerves kicking in? Are they going to get the good starts? Is there anyone that's going to bog down? Where are everyone going to put themselves when it comes to T1? And are they going to be able to manage to make it through the first corner all in one piece? I suppose that's going to be one of the biggest things from this.
Yeah, like you say, we're getting into the meat and bones of the race now. Only 15 seconds to go, but yeah, I mean,
The
going
lights are on.
side by side, it's going to be interesting. So yeah, here we go. Everyone revving up the engines.
And
One
that's
light,
3
two
lights,
lights, three
4
lights, four
lights,
lights,
5, 6 lights, and away we go. Oh, it holds itself for the start of the Phoenix F4 Championship, and Carl Felvers has got a dominating lead there. Dive straight across, covered everyone off, which is great to see from him. It's exactly what he's doing. So we've got a big spin there. It looks like Adam Lyle, who's managed to catch the curb and spin himself round there. It's big changes in the back of the field. We've got cars exiting stage left, stage right. Thomas Potter involved in that. Lachlan Hill managed to come out of that unscathed, which is... we didn't want to see it, did we? But I think it was inevitable with the amount of cars and, being the first race of the season. Looks like everyone's managed to get going again. Adam Lyle's going as well. Carl Felvers, though, 5 tenths out in front. He managed to keep clean there and do exactly what he needed to do to hold that lead.
Yeah, like you say, Kyle is absolutely flying, and I think that accident was inevitable. Funnily enough, I was watching Adam at the time, commentators cursing and everything, but just went through turn one, got a little bit wide on the bumps, and that was just enough to send him round. And unfortunately, like you say, Thomas Potter, Jonathan Ogden, and a few others were collected in the incident. So really a shame, but hey, they've got another race to go, and some of their cars aren't damaged, and they can get back into the race and just bang in some consistent times and hope others make mistakes. So all is not lost.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right there, as we see Thomas Potter overtake Catherine. Oh, and she's spun, which is obviously a real shame there. Oh, collected another driver as she goes past there. That's going to be potentially one for the stewards there. for an unsafe rejoin, but we'll see how that goes. So Catherine Potter down to 22nd. What's going to be interesting to see now is how the drivers dig deep and really bed themselves in. You know, it's a long race, it's 20 minutes. We know that these tyres don't always like to hold on. It'd be interesting to see who can manage them the most. Lockups there from Carl Felvis ahead, which isn't going to do his tyres, and he's going to potentially flat spot those. As the grid's starting to spread out just a little bit here, as we go on board with Jordan Osborne, now about a second off, it looks like everyone's sort of maintaining probably 7 to 8 tenths of a gap between one another throughout the grid, as Ethan Hill tries to challenge Jordan. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do here. Does he go for the overtake? Does he sit behind him? You know, just bring those tyres into the right window. I think it'll be interesting to see how many people push hard in the first couple of laps of the stint, and then potentially burn them out coming towards the end, and really, you know, take that toll, potentially to scuff themselves up for the back end of the race.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said before, it's a long race. People need to settle into it. But I think one person that isn't doing that is Alexander in P2, setting a purple middle sector. And funny enough, Cristiano in P3 setting a purple sector 3. So we've got purple sectors in each sector from different drivers. So it's super close. You know, Alexander's 3 tenths behind. Carl's got to be feeling the pressure right now with 17 minutes to go.
Yeah, it's what looked like a small mistake there from Carl Felvis on the curb. Managed to just catch it on there, dropped a little bit of speed. What's very interesting to see is Cristiano Bettini taking the fastest lap of the race right now with a 1:19.8. So he's definitely got the pace in that car. I wonder if he's just hanging back just a little bit, just to see what Alexander and Carl do. Potentially they might tangle, so he might just be holding his own. He knows he's got the pace there quite clearly, and then potentially he might jump at the chance of going for the overtake when these two start battling, because I'm sure you're aware from your real life racing, as soon as people start battling, that's where it starts to drag the pack back, and there's a real good opportunity there to dive in and, you know, potentially make that move that wasn't possible before.
100%. I think that's the ideal scenario of just picking up the pieces on others' mistakes. I had a scenario at Silverstone, the final round of the championship, where started off quite slow, and then the front started to battle, and I caught up very quickly. I only took the space for 2 laps. Unfortunately, I was collecting an incident that race, but it really goes to show the power of you know, battling and how you can catch up so quickly if you just keep it nice and consistent and save those tyres. We see Kyle now set the fastest lap by 3 tenths on a 19.5, so he's got on with it. But a small mistake on the exit at Cascade, so they're getting caught up on the grass. Big sideways moment, and Alexander's right back with him. So yeah, can't afford these little mistakes when you've got, you know, 3 or 4 F4s breathing down your neck.
And this is the thing, I think these cars are on a knife edge, right? I think there's a difference between sort of taking it easy in these F4 cars and really pinning it to the wall, as we see Alexander really tucking in behind him. I wonder if Kyle's just trying to get the heat back in the tyre. He's obviously dipped the grass, so I'm wondering if maybe he's just lost a bit of tyre temp there and he's having to recollect himself. Obviously it's always easier to be the hunter than it is to be the hunted. And in this situation here, Alexander is definitely the hunter in these two, and it'd be interesting to see now as he closes up 5 tenths of a second gap now to Kyle. If he can just tuck in behind him, get into that toe, because we know the toe is powerful in certain situations, and then make that move stick where he needs to.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, Kyle's still setting a 19.9. But yeah, Alexander I think he can take it quite nice and easy. He's got 1.3 seconds to Cristiano behind, so that's quite a nice position to be in, as you haven't got, you know, it breathing down your neck, so you can still focus forward at the moment. But you never know. I mean, we saw there Carl one small mistake, and you've got Alexander right back on the back of you. But again, we see Kyle's quite consistent docking up at the moment into that hairpin, so it's interesting to see. Potentially brake bias is different to others, or he's just really pushing that braking, but he's still getting it stopped and he's still quick. So that's really interesting to see, as we see Cristiano set a personal best sector 1.
Yeah, just cameras on Johnny Ogden there, who did a great move into T1 on Lachlan Hill, and he's now dispatched him, and he's now chasing after Ethan Hill. He's got a 5-second gap to him, so he's really going to have to get his head down now and really focus and make that push, because that's a lot of time to make up. There's still 13 minutes left on the clock, as we see Lachlan Hill go off and lose several places here. It was decent rejoin, so he's not managed to collect anyone on that one. But yeah, sort of going from bad to worse for Lachlan Hill in this race. He gets collected at the start, and look, we're probably going to see this more and more often. These small mistakes that come in, and with the bumps on the track, it's just enough to catch even the seasoned driver out, as Adam Lyle dives up the inside and takes that position away from him. So Adam Lyle back up to 16th place on a bit of a recovery drive as Lachlan Hill dives him into the corner and fires Adam Lyle off. Oh, that's a tough one, that one. I think that's one he potentially could have backed out of there. So not going great for Adam Lyle, is now back down into 17th place as Olivia goes in front of him in P16. And just looking back up here, Alex Forster obviously having a slight off and being taken by Fabio. So look, there's clearly a lot of drivers here that are starting to struggle a little bit on these tyres. Maybe they've pushed them a bit too much. Maybe they're getting caught on the bumps on the track. It'll be interesting to see what they do for the rest of the races. Ethan Hill now starting to close onto the back of Jacob Gannon, going through the chicane here. It's all starting to heat up quite nicely. I must admit, you're starting to see some small mistakes. We're starting to see some people bed in. The gap at the front now back up to 0.8 of a second, so Kyle's settling in from Alexander Link, and then you've got Cristiano Bettini again, another 0.8 off there. So Kyle's not dropping them as we thought he potentially would with the pace that he had. As Cristiano Bettini sets again a 19.7 compared to Kyle's 1:20. So a couple of tenths quicker there. I have a funny feeling he's just backing off a little bit, like we said before, and maybe just trying to see what happens with the two cars in front. 11 minutes left to go. This could be poised for a great three-way battle for the lead.
It certainly could, and what you can't forget is the World Sim Racing team, who are in 4th, 5th and 6th, all there to pick up the pieces if anything goes wrong. So yeah, I think drivers at the moment just settling in, just trying to get the consistency there. Alexander and Cristiano are doing a great job behind Kyle, who's edging them out now, but you don't know, he could be using his tyres more, and then it could level back out at the end of the race. But yeah, really unlucky for Adam as well. His race has gone from bad to worse. As we see him make a move into the hairpin, but it's been an unfortunate one, being taken out or potentially inducing it himself at the start. But like we know, these cars are so easy to lose. It's minimal stuff, so really unfortunate for Adam. And then that move it's potentially going to be looked at by the stewards, but I know nothing obviously harmful was meant by that, and we can all go about our day and enjoy some more battling.
Yeah, as Carl Felvers sets a 19.5, really starting to stretch his legs now, so maybe he was just managing his tyres and just getting a feel for it, pacing himself. Obviously it's a long race, we're nearly halfway through it now. Adam Lyle on the recovery drive, we know he's got the pace, we know that he can make up positions, and he's a fierce battler, so let's see what he can do. If he can keep it on the straight and narrow and manage his pace as he is now. Let's see what time he does here. It'll be a good indication. 1:20.6. So it's not quite as quick enough for the top guys, but it's still much quicker than probably the top 7 or 8 in front of him, as Ethan Hill gets him past Jacob Gannon into the hairpin there. So great move from Ethan, doing very well in 10th place. Again, we're starting to see this field really bunch out now. There's a quite gap between a lot of the drivers, so whether that's mistakes that are being made or people pacing themselves and maybe struggling with tyre degradation, we don't know. But it's definitely interesting to see how everyone's taking a read of the race, as Cristiano Bettini now only 0.5 off of Alexander Link, so maybe a slight drop of the car onto a corner there, but he's definitely pushing up with the WSR drivers, WRT drivers, sorry, tucking in behind, so they're poised to strike at any moment if anything goes wrong. But yeah, it looks like everything's spacing out quite nicely.
Yeah, I think we're in for a real battle for second and third. If Carl keeps extending the lead like he does, I think he's good to just keep it nice and consistent now. Can potentially back off, but not relax, as you still have got a lot of people breathing down your neck. But Cristiano's really picked up the pace now. There's only 0.5 between him and Alexander, so Alexander's, I think, is going to have to potentially, say goodbye to the lead for this one and really focus on his mirrors to try and back the points towards the end of the season, as we know he is a championship contender.
Yeah, for sure. And Ethan Hill shows that he's dropping down, or whether it's a timing tower glitch here. I think it potentially is. Maybe the transponder on the car not quite picking up where it needs to. But it showed him further up the grid. Looks like he settled back into the 10th place that he was originally in, 2 seconds off from Jordan Osborne, who's seems to be just plodding along by himself. Got some clean air here, so it'll be interesting to see what he can do. I think probably the closest that we've got going on at the moment is going to be the battle here between Andrea, as we see someone going slow on the outskirts of that lap there, so it'll be interesting to see what's going on. Whether it's a back marker, it could potentially be.
Yeah, that was a back marker. But,
Gotcha.
Yeah, the gaps are starting to go back up at the front of the field. Not massively, obviously, but see, Alexander and Cristiano now 1.2 seconds. So Alexander did a 19.5 last lap, so he's pushing on now. So yeah, it's really interesting. People, I think potentially tyre saving maybe, because some laps they go up and then some laps they come back down. So yeah, I think they're just trying to be there at the end in the most competitive positions. Because to me, the visual gap between Kyle and Alexander is coming down ever so slightly. So it'll be interesting to see at the end of this lap what the gap is.
Yeah, and Ethan Hill just getting a little squirrely on the exit of the hairpin there, and he's lost a couple of positions. So Johnny Ogden has managed to make his way through, as well as Jacob Gannon. That's a tough one there. It's very, I suppose, as the race goes on, it's going to be harder and harder for the guys and girls to keep the power down out of the corners as those rear tyres light up. So he's now going to have to try and see what he can do to catch up to the back of Johnny, as Adam Lyle is having a great battle here with Olivia through the chicane. And as to be fair, it's great sportsmanship between the two. I think there could have been a dive there. There could have been a slightly more aggressive move, but being teammates, I think this is an opportunity for them to work together, just to try and see what they can do to push themselves up the grid. But you know, it's 3 seconds to 15th place. It's going to be a bit of a tall order. I think, you know, there's a lot to and fro in between them. They might need to just decide here who's the faster car, and try and push together. Because I think if not, you're gonna have the likes of Lachlan Hill that's just tagging on the back now, 4 tenths behind Olivia. Who might just make his way up and start the overtake. So looks like Adams escaped, and they've figured out who's the faster driver in the moment. But it's still all to play for.
Yeah, indeed, that was a brilliant move by Adam. And just on my timing tower, it's really interesting to see. Alexander set a purple middle sector last lap. And there was some lap traffic as well, so the gap is now 1 second, potentially a bit lower if we get to the end of this lap. So it's really close between that. Jacob Gannon setting a personal best in Sector 1. Lachlan Hill setting personal best. Fabio in P13 setting personal best. Everyone's really starting to pick up the pace in these last 5 minutes. So I'll be interested to see if we get any last lap battles as we see Adam potentially closing on P15.
Yeah, and interesting here, Lorenzo Sentra from the World Racers team really starting to hassle Cristiano Bettini ahead. So whether he's struggling with tyres or whatnot, or you know, the World Racing team driver has managed to conserve them as much as possible, I'm not too sure, but it's definitely spicing things up a little bit. As we see also Alexander Link now starting to catch up to Kyle. So whether Kyle's made a slight mistake here, I'm not too sure, but you know, he was pushing nearly a 2 second gap. So it'd be interesting to see, you know, what the situation is, and whether Alexander, in the last 4 minutes of this race, could potentially challenge him for the lead as they come up to the back markers, which could prove to be quite beneficial for Alexander, I suppose. As we normally see in a lot of these races and championships, that back markers could be the difference between, you know, holding a driver up, or you know, potentially getting into a corner they don't want him to get into. Let's hope it's a clean pass, but yeah, it might be all guns out here for Alexander Link, who's really now catching up to him, 8 tenths behind. Let's see what he can do.
Yeah, indeed, Alexander's picking up the pace, and like you say, this lap traffic, but I think the battle we want to keep an eye on is P3, P4 and P5. The gap between the WRT drivers is closed up, and yeah, Cristiano cannot relax here. He has got Lorenzo and Alessandro right on their tails, so be interested to see how that goes. Now making our way through the lap traffic in the lead. Kyle's dispatched a bit nicely, and Alexander's also dispatched a bit nicely, so good job there.
I've just been told as well that the drivers don't actually have the choice of the medium or the hard tyres, which is quite interesting actually. So they're all on the softs, which, to be fair, puts them on a level playing field. So that's definitely going to be an interesting one, which is going to bring the whole piece around tyre management into perspective. It might help us understand why some of these drivers are backing up and then suddenly finding pace. As these, like you say, the WRT drivers are really pushing together now, starting to close up to one another. I wonder if they're going to make a last-minute dive for the positions ahead, but as they come up into some back markers here around the last corner, it looks like they're going to make it through nice and easy and not going to be impeded as much. But it's definitely interesting to see. So yeah, so our thought there of maybe soft, mediums, and hards hasn't quite come to fruition. So everyone on the soft tyre, so it's a level playing field out there, and it now comes down to the drivers to see what they can do in terms of just managing the wear and the tyre life. I'm sure a lot of them would have cooked the rears and potentially might have put themselves in difficult situations, especially coming through this hairpin that we're coming up to now on the camera. There's a strong opportunity for people to be able to put it sideways and potentially lose it. So let's just see how this develops, I suppose.
100%. I mean, there's 2 minutes. That's we've got 3 laps left. As we see, Alexander make a mistake into the chicane. They're just going a little deep and losing some time to Kyle. So that's not going to help his challenge on P1. As we see, Lorenzo have a little mistake on the exit of the chicane as well. So everyone's really closing up now. So it'll be interesting to see what the team does, because obviously you don't want to do anything stupid against your teammate, but if they have more pace to potentially challenge Cristiano on the final lap, then there might be some swap arounds. But yeah, Cristiano is really being hassled right now, so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, definitely. It looks like Carl Felvers has definitely stretched his legs now against Alexander. I wonder if his tyres have just started to go off, or he's been caught in some traffic. Carl Felvers half a second faster than Alexander Link at the moment. So just goes to show potentially Carl was just backing off, allowing his tyres to come into the right window and just managing that degradation that he's got going on. It looks like he's keeping it pretty steady on there. But if he carries on the way that he's going, this could be a nice, solid, easy win for him from the front of the grid. Starts pole, qualifies pole, and finishes pole. That'd be a great start to his championship season.
It certainly would. It's been a great drive by Kyle. I don't want to jinx it. There's still 2 laps left, but he's been doing a great job so far. Indeed, just managing those tyres. And like I mentioned earlier, it's such a difficult circuit to stay consistent around, as we say at the beginning as well. So yeah, he's doing a good job so far. Just needs to keep it on the circuit, and hopefully he'll come home. But as we see, Lorenzo, getting a little bit of lap traffic into Druids. Alessandro was almost taken out there with the lap traffic, but managed to survive, and we go about our day.
I'm glad you managed to see that, because I didn't. But yeah, I was too focused on Lorenzo there, who's just coming through that last corner. But it's interesting to see the gaps between the drivers. Carl Felvers here, maybe a tenth and a half ahead of Alexander, and then these guys are in the 119s, and then from third place onwards we're into the 120s, so potentially people are starting to struggle now as we come onto the last lap. What looks to be the last lap, there's +1 lap on this one. Could this be the win that Carl wants? It's certainly looking like it at the moment, unless he makes a serious mistake here. But yeah, it's looking like a dominant drive from him. Alexander Link just unfortunately not managing to find the pace at the back end of the race. Same again as Cristiano Bettini, just not having that pace. Maybe burnt out the tyres too much at the start. We know that these cars, especially if they're all on the soft tyres, they're really going to have to manage these, especially in 20-minute sprints. But you never know what might happen for the reverse grid race. That's where you start to see all the exciting stuff, as Johnny Ogden and Jordan Osborne battling it out through the hairpin as they side by side down the straight. Who's going to out-drag the other one? This is going to be interesting. Jordan Osborne on the outside, Johnny on the inside. Are they going to give each other room? And Johnny Ogden there made it look easy, to be fair. I think Jordan potentially gave him that opportunity to dive up the inside. I think he knew that he didn't have the pace on him that potentially he should have had, as Johnny Ogden then makes his way up to 9th place. And Carl Felvis there with the win from Alexander Link and Cristiano Bettini. Got caught up there just having a look at that battle, but what a dominant drive from Kyle. I think that was definitely interesting to see. We saw a lot of fast lap times during practice and qualifying, and Joe, we thought it might be more on its head, but by the looks of things, it seems to be Kyle Felvis on top once again. So it'd be interesting to understand his thoughts in the race interview and see what he thought of the tyre degradation and the tyre life of the actual cars.
Yeah, indeed, that was an ideal race, I think, for him, except having the fastest lap, which Alexander, interestingly, got with a 19.499, which is really interesting. But yeah, Kyle drove a great race there. Tyre management seemed to be brilliant compared to all the other drivers. And yeah, it was really a dominant performance, wasn't it? 1.3 seconds out in the lead is a great way to start your championship campaign.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, we're going to let the drivers go around on their cool down lap now and make their way back to the pits to get themselves ready for the second race. And we're going to go to a quick ad break and hear from our sponsor. And we're live.
Hi everyone, welcome back. Just going to do some post-race interviews now with our top three. Starting off with Cristiano. Cristiano, that looked to be an interesting race to say the least, with all the sort of the drama at the beginning and then also the time management being on those soft tyres for 20 minutes. How was it like from your perspective?
It looks like... Have we got Cristiano? Is he here?
Looks, yeah.
Cristiano, can you hear us? It looks like he might potentially be having some technical issues with his microphone. Just having a look here. Yeah. Okay, so we might have to come back to Cristiano. Alexander, are you here for your second place?
I'm here, yes.
Hey, there we go. See, there we go. No technical issues here. Okay, we'll come back to Cristiano. Alexander, talk us through that race. It looked like you had the pace for the first half of the race, and whether it was tires or not, talk us through it.
No, it wasn't tires or anything. I'm pretty sick, and I also had some FPS issues. I was struggling a little bit during that race.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's fine. Like, I'm happy with getting second. I think if my pace had been a bit better, I still wouldn't have gotten first because I really don't know how I should overtake on this track. I had a pole in my Delta and messed it up in the last lap on quali, so that's what I'm deserving now.
Oh, look, I think hands down that was an incredible drive from yourself, and you know, look, there was times there where you were setting fastest laps, and you were catching Carl at one point there, so definitely gaining on him. Obviously, if you're sick as well, I'd hate to see what you're like when you're at full health. You might be a force to be reckoned with here, but No, it was an absolutely incredible drive. How did you find the bumps around the track? I think that's been a key issue for some of the drivers around here. How did you manage those?
Yeah, there are a couple of situations. I think there were 1 or 2 situations where I was about to run wide into the second corner, the fast left-hander, and I just completely went off the throttle on the exit, because if you go on the curb there, I can't really get off it again. At least it feels like that sometimes with the setup, and you get bounced into wherever. So I intentionally lost some time in some situations to not risk it too much. But yeah, the bumps are really bad on the track.
That would make sense, because we see you coming and going, and we see you getting close, and then you'd back off again.
Yeah.
So we wondered potentially if it was something to do with the tires, or maybe it was.
The tires were fine.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, that's good to hear, because we were debating whether potentially tires were playing a part, especially on the softs, as to whether people start to light up the rear tires and they were going off and they were having to manage those, but. If they were going well, then
a bit of time. But if I, for example, am careful on the exit out of the hairpin, the rear tires don't really fall off that much faster than my fronts, fortunately. So it's relatively easy to manage.
So what are your aspirations for the rest of this championship? Where do you see yourself? Where are you trying to put the car in terms of championship position? What are you aiming for?
I think if I can extract everything, everything should be possible. I'm definitely aiming to try to win the championship, and I'll make the best of it. The reverse grid plus success ballast system that's going to be tough, but I'll do my best.
And how are you feeling about the reverse grid? I mean, we see this become potentially one of the most exciting parts of the evening, where the fastest drivers at the back and some of the slower drivers at the front. What are your plans? How are you planning to make your way through the grid?
My plan is to survive. I think I've seen so many people spin in the first race as well. I think I'm going to inherit a lot of positions, even if I'm being very careful. And then I'll see where I end up. I think actually getting somewhere towards the front is going to be pretty hard in just 20 minutes. But yeah, just maximizing it and trying to stay out of trouble, and that's going to be very hard.
Great. No, that's absolutely awesome. I think it's one of those ones where it's right place at the right time, right? These reverse grid races can be incredibly interesting, so we'll see how that goes. Is there anyone you wanted to shout out whilst you're here on the stream?
Yes, I wanted to shout out my girlfriend Charlotte, who made this livery for me on very, very short notice, and I really like it.
Amazing, awesome. Well, look, best of luck for the reverse grid race, and we will see you potentially in the interviews in the second round.
We'll see. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you. Cool, and hopefully we should have Kyle here, and Thomas, if you want to take that away and introduce our first place man.
Brilliant, Kyle. Mega drive in that first race. Pretty much the ideal race, to be honest. Pulled out that second gap and never looked back. Obviously, I did a bit of testing last night and was really struggling with the bumps and the nature of the circuit. Talk us through how you were feeling during that race, just keeping the consistency and trying to keep it on circuit.
Yeah, I mean, long race, 20 minutes, so you just got to keep calm, keep it collected, and really the car just comes to you. Just keep light hands on the steering wheel and you won't really feel the bumps, to be fair.
Yeah, you seem to be doing a really good job of that. And I think the racecraft was one thing that was potentially going to be an issue. How did you sort of think about it at the start? Obviously, you had some quick people behind you, so how did you sort of adapt to that pole position, stress mentality? How did you sort of lower those nerves and keep it cool under pressure?
Main focus was getting a good start. I mean, off the line it was good launch, and then going down towards the hairpin, just keep it covered, but there was quite a gap anyway, so just took the normal line and carried on from there, pulled the gap. Brilliant.
And obviously for this reverse grid race, it's shaping up to be quite an interesting race. Obviously you'll be right at the very back, so how are you approaching this one? Obviously I think the main goal is survival and just back those championship points for the rest of the season.
Exactly, just see how far I can make it up. There's, it's inevitable that there's going to be a crash somewhere up the road, so just eyes forward, keep an eye on it, and try to avoid anything that happens.
That sounds like a very good plan. And how are you, I'm going to ask a similar question to what Joel asked, how are you sort of looking at the season ahead? Is obviously your main goal is to win the championship like everyone else, but how are you sort of approaching that, and how does practice and sort of testing come into that as well?
Of course, the main goal to win the championship, but I think you got to go into a night like this just thinking it's a single round sort of thing. Try and get the most points you can, and then they all add up over the season, and hopefully that comes out with a P1.
Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, you're off to the brilliant start at the moment. And another question as well that Joel asked, is there anyone else you'd like to shout out on whilst you're on the stream?
I mean, shout out to Phoenix, I guess. They're putting on, the biggest F4 season at the moment in Assetto. I know there's other people they've tried it, but I mean, this seems to be the biggest and best one around, so shout out Phoenix for that.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kyle. Good luck for race 2. Shaping up to be an interesting one.
Cheers, Tom.
Oh, well, there we have Kyle Felvis, who commanded a dominating win in the first race, and let's see if he can replicate that in the second, as we've got Josias Curl. Hopefully I said that right, but on pole for this one, so it's going to be an interesting race. Reverse grid for this one, so it'll be interesting to see how the fast drivers make their way through the pack and make it through. Like we say, there's 22 cars now on the grid. Like Kyle said, probably one of the biggest grids in terms of Assetto Corsa at the moment. So it'd be interesting to see how the drivers make their way through the pack, how they navigate potential crashes or slow drivers as they make their way through. This is probably going to be one of the more interesting races that we see across the grid. So it's shaping up to be an incredibly good one. And if anything, it sounded like Carl was slightly nonchalant about winning that one. It seemed like he didn't really try.
I was going to say, he seemed pretty relaxed and calm about it. And I think that's a great mentality to have, especially on quite a high stakes, pressured environment as anything like this. And he's got the absolute right mentality as well as our other top 3. So yeah, I think just survival is the main goal in this one. Just bank the championship points. It's still first round. It feels a lot longer into the season, but yeah, I mean, it's first round, second race. I think the main goal is just got to be banking those points and staying out of trouble, and then seeing where you end up at the end.
Yeah, you're definitely right there. As we've got Catherine Potter and Thomas Potter in 3rd and 4th place here, so we know both of them are very quick drivers, and we've got Adam Lyle in P5, Olivia in P6. So it'd be interesting to see what they can do to make up some points from the first race. Obviously, they had a bit of a difficult run first time round, but potentially here they might have the opportunity to gain some valuable points. I mean, aside from penalties and post-race protests, this could be an opportunity for them to really make a stamp in their championship standings.
Yeah, indeed. I think Adam has got to be one of the strong ones going into this, as well as the Potters, like you mentioned. Obviously, Thomas and Catherine coming from some real world racing, which they're doing absolutely fantastic in. And I think Adam as well, he's got some mega pace. So, as well as the top 2, never rule them out. Then going down there, we've got Alex and Ethan and Lachlan as well. They were all looking pretty strong as well. So yeah, again, really don't know who it is.
Lights have gone out here, and Josias Coriel, making a great start. Managed to get up the inside there. And there's a little bit of contact here as he exits stage right. That's a real shame for him. And there's a big crash in the middle of the pack here. Hopefully people have managed to make it through here, but this is the issue with reverse grid races. Sometimes we've got to be careful. There are some slower drivers on the pack here, as we see Alex Forrester collecting a couple of cars. That's definitely shaken up the grid, as Thomas Potter has taken first place behind Catherine. So the brother and sister duo here have definitely made their way through, with Olivia in P3. I'm just looking now, Adam Lyle again, just unfortunately wrong place at the wrong time. And is he out of the race? It could potentially be. It looks like he's pulled off now, which is a real shame for him. But we go on board to Thomas Potter, who's a second and a half ahead. This might be the opportunity that he needs to really bring back his championship fight. Just trying to see where Kyle is as well. Whereabouts has he gone? Oh, he is 9th place. Okay, so he's made quite a standpoint here from the back of the grid to 9th, so it'd be interesting to see what he can do. Thomas Potter leading by 2.5 seconds now. He is absolutely checked out, so it'd be interesting to see what he does here, as Olivia sends a move here for Catherine Potter. Is she going to dive into the first corner, thinks better of it, Just going to hang fire, see what happens. Catherine goes a little wide on the exit of T1. Is she going to be able to tuck in and set up the move for the next corner here? It's looking so. Carries a lot more speed into that left-hander. And this might be the opportunity that she needs to dive it up the inside. Still a little bit far away. Just keeping those eyes on. Just looking to see what she can do. And a big dive and a big lunge. Just an opportunistic move there from Olivia. Absolutely beautiful. Is she going to be able to hold it? That's the question. Side by side, they're coming into the chicane here. Who's going to back out first? This is going to be definitely interesting. Catherine goes straight in for it. Olivia going for the switchback. Is on the inside for the next corner. Is she going to give the room? It's fierce battle in there. It's just, to be fair, it's great sportsmanship between the two. Olivia's managed to take that P2, so that's great stuff. Josh Martin now up into P3, and he's capitalised right on the back of Olivia. What's he going to be able to do here? We know Josh Martin's fast. It might be a case here that Josh Martin could potentially make up some time here and challenge potentially for the lead.
Yeah, 100%. I've just been watching Thomas Potter. A few lockups on that lap with a few little mistakes creeping in. But I don't think he's got anything to worry about at the moment. He's still got a big lead, and yeah, he's flying at the moment. A really good battle there, like you mentioned, between Olivia and Catherine. Catherine's dropped down to 9th, so you know, people just being opportunistic after that little battle, but still running in a good position. Kyle up to P7, Alessandro and Andrea, which we were watching in the first race, are up into 4th and 5th. Josh in P3, all over the back of Olivia. So yeah, this has been a hectic start, and yeah, just looking at some of the DNFs. I mean, Adam is unfortunately out of the race. He has just had no luck. This one, Alexander was involved in an incident at the beginning. He's down in P16. Cristiano in P14, another one involved in the incident. So some big, strong characters in race 1, just getting caught up in those lap 1 incidents, which I think the person that's going to be overall victor of the championship is going to be the one that just stays out of these accidents. But as we know, it's so hard to do. So, but I mean, they're making some good comebacks, and there's still 16 minutes to go. So never rule them out.
Yeah, and Johnny Ogden making the move on Ricardo Lina there, making his way through, so he's got some time to make up. Carl Felvis now up to 5th position, so he's making tracks from the back of the pack. Jordan Osborne, who did have a great start there and managed to make up some positions, has managed to get himself tangled up there and lose out quite a fair few, so that's obviously a tough one for him with the great start that he had, as he now drops down to P13 and he's battling away here with Fabio Tabaroni. Be interesting to see what happens here. Who's going to make it into the first corner? It looks like Jordan might potentially have it. Looks like Fabio might have just held on. So that's interesting to see. Kyle's definitely pushing. Dropped down now to 6th place. So I think Kyle might have just had a slight off, and he's now being pushed now by Lorenzo Centra, which is going to be interesting. See who makes it through this corner here.
Yeah, interesting. I was just watching Kyle through turn 1. He got out on the AstroTurf. Had a real big moment out on the grass and just tapped the wall ever so slightly, so a little mistake crept in there, but he's still running in a really good position as we see some side-by-side action up in front between Andrea and Alessandro.
Yeah, and what's really interesting here is you've got Josh Martin and Olivia really battling along, and actually that's now starting to drag in the WRT drivers into the mix, and it'd be interesting to see what they can do. The longer that Josh Martin sits behind Olivia, I think the tougher it's going to become for him. He might become the hunted and might have to start defending his position here as the grid's starting to form up a little bit. Carl getting involved in this too. Josh Martin to the outside, and they're going to drag race it down to the first corner. Sciarti getting involved. Carl Felvis to the outside. Oh, this is going to be interesting. 3 wide potentially in. They all call out unscathed. Well, I didn't expect that.
Yeah, like you say, some great sportsmanship being shown here. Kyle and Alessandro all over the back of Josh Martin. Josh Martin really doing well under all this pressure. And Olivia, luckily, she's been able to build that gap. So, as I say, that does a little lock up. But yeah, no, she managed to get that gap. And one person we're not really talking about is Thomas Potter. I mean, he's, what, 7 seconds up in front? As long as he don't make a mistake, he's got this one in the bag. But yeah, you just got to keep it nice and consistent and keep a nice cool head.
And almost just as you say that, he runs out wide onto the grass. He's managed to keep it together though. 6.6 seconds out in the lead, with Josh Martin now being overtaken by Carl Felvis. So we missed that, unfortunately. But we know Josh Martin's a fast driver. We know he likes to get his elbows out and get stuck in. So I don't think this is the end for him. It looks like he might be able to push back up to Olivia and Kyle. It depends how quickly Kyle can dispatch Olivia here, if at all possible, as he goes up the inside into the last corner here. And to be quite honest, makes it look easy. I think Olivia probably gave him a little bit more room than what he was expecting, and up he is now into P3.
Indeed, now he's got to go hunt after Andrea. I mean, the pace that the top two are showing is a little slower than Kyle's race 1 pace, but obviously he's been using those tyres to get up through the field, so it'll be interesting to see if he can in fact catch them. He's got a nice gap back to Olivia now, so he can just settle into his groove and his rhythm, and just bang into some nice, fast, consistent laps as we watch the battle behind Romel Biss.
Yeah, it's interesting to see some of the understeer that some of these drivers are facing, as Kyle Felvis locks up there again into that hairpin. That's not going to do his tyres any good. Olivia doing incredibly well here in 4th place and holding her own, which is great to see. Olivia coming through the ranks and really developing her driving skills, and has actually put herself in quite a great position as, potentially one of the top runners for this championship, doing a lot of practice and really dialing it in. So big props to her. Ascierti is now chasing her down, so it'd be interesting to see how she goes this one. Does she let him go through and potentially chase with him? It's a little slide from Olivia there that's going to put her on the back foot. Ascierti now takes to the inside. He's going to make this look easy, I would have thought. As Olivia backs out and lets him go, but may she get him on the switchback? It might be a case where she now follows him through. Obviously, clearly he's dominating as the faster driver here, but if she sticks with him, this might be an opportunity for her to make her way back up the pack, as Josh Martin's still in the chase as well as Lorenzo Sentra. So this is all starting to hot up a little bit. This reverse grid race is really starting to show, what these drivers are capable of. We've seen this time and time again, where these reverse grid races really show what drivers can do and their overtaking skills and their abilities. This hairpin seems to catch a lot of people out, as you see Lorenzo Sentra go around the outside. Does he make it stick? No. Josh Martin holds him off. He knows exactly what he's doing there. This is going to be an interesting one for sort of 5th, 6th and 7th here.
It certainly is. That battle's growing ever more fierce. One interesting thing that I've just picked up on is Kyle Felfer setting the fast lap of the race on a 19.8, bringing that gap down to Andrea, who in turn is bringing the gap down to Thomas Potter, down to 5 seconds, potentially a little less at the end of this lap. So yeah, I think the top 3 are also going to close up towards the end of the race, so that'll be interesting to see how it plays out as well.
Yeah, I don't want to say commentator's curse, but Olivia's now dropped down to 8. Johnny Ogden's managed to make his way through, and here he is pressurising Lorenzo Sentra in P6. So it'll be interesting to see what Johnny Ogden can do. Johnny Ogden's one of the faster racing drivers within this season. Real life racing driver too in the Focus Cup. Done incredibly well with that, and I know he's continuing on his racing career this season. So it'd be interesting to see what he can do there too. But it's all really starting to hot up. What's really interesting is Andrea Rugi now only 4 seconds behind Thomas Potter, with Kyle Felder was 2 seconds behind him. Taking maybe 3 seconds, nearly 3 seconds out of Thomas Potter. So maybe Thomas is just taking a little bit easy, conserving his tyres, maybe just trying to see the lay of the land and not make any mistakes. It's potentially better to be a couple of tenths slower a lap to make sure you keep it on the track and don't make any mistakes, compared to really going and putting the car on its nose and going hammer and tong as he goes wide again. That's going to cost him some time. Now down to 3.9 seconds as Cristiano Bettini makes a great move into the chicane there against Ricardo Lina and takes that position from him. It's starting to close up more than it has the first race, so it'll be interesting to see what happens as Lorenzo Sentra now round the inside, on the outside, and he's gone wide. I think that was almost inevitable round there. It's very difficult with the marbles on the outside of the track to try and keep it round that corner as he tucks back in. Lost a couple of positions, but definitely interesting to see how this grid is shaping up.
100%. Now Jonathan Ogden putting lots of his pressure on Josh Martin. So it'll be interesting to see whereabouts he makes the move and if he goes for the move. As we see again, that gap really coming down to P1. Andrea now down to 3.3 seconds to Thomas, and Kyle only about a second back from Andrea. So this is really heating up with 8 minutes to go, and you can't rule out Alessandro either in P4, who's banging in some quick times. And then we have this battle between Josh and Jonathan, which will be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to see. Obviously, the battles that are going on is definitely hampering the drivers' progression, and it's allowing drivers behind just to creep up and get involved. As we see Olivia again, still battling her way through and holding her own in 8th place. She's really tucking in here now behind Cristiano Bettini, and it's interesting to see. See Carl, yeah, again a second behind, but has he got the pace in the last 8 minutes of this session to go for Andrea Rugi, as Thomas Potter's now only got a 2.2 second advantage, so he needs to be a little bit careful here. It might be a case that he starts to get picked up probably with 5 minutes to go, and then it might be an all-out battle and a defence to try and secure that P1, as you see Jonathan Ogden going in late on the brakes into the last corner there against Josh Martin. These two have raced together in various championships before, so they know how each other drive. As we come into the first corner here, Johnny's thinking better of it. Not going to make any silly lunges. He's going to tuck in, get that toe, hopefully get the propel out this corner here, and maybe drag him down the straight. Josh misses the apex just a little bit, but Johnny too. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do into this corner, into the hairpin, sorry, and then down onto the straight.
Yeah, Josh with a little lock up there. Potentially, Jonathan's going to get the drive out, especially with that big sideways moment from Josh. This could be the move. I think he's a little bit too far back, but it'll be interesting to see if he goes for it. No, he doesn't. He thinks better of it. The battle between P2 and P3 is really heated up. Kyle all over the back of Andrea. I don't know if there was a little mistake there. I didn't quite see, but yeah, this is going to be really interesting to see if Kyle thinks about working with him to try and catch Thomas, or if he just goes for it on a rampage to try and get Thomas as well.
Yeah, it's a good point that, to be fair, as Carl dives up the inside into the last corner and it makes it stick, which I think, to be fair, it's one of those situations. Carl's lapping half a second quicker than P3 right now, so I think it almost made sense that potentially he just wants to crack on and chase after Thomas Potter. He can smell blood in this instance. Thomas Potter, a big off after the first corner, and he's just given away there his P1, which is, that's got to be demotivating for him. He had a clean run there. He could potentially have held off Carl Felvis as he's dropping now down the grid. Hopefully he hasn't got too much damage, but you would have thought in these Formula 4 cars that's probably knocked the steering out just a little bit. Be interesting to see as he drops down to P7, but that's just gifted the race lead there to Kyle, which I'm sure he's not going to complain about. But now it's down to Andrea to see what he can do and see if he can just tap onto the back of him. He gets very close to the barrier through that chicane there. It was almost a big moment for him. That could have ended his race pretty quickly and caused quite a pile up, as Thomas Potter now getting stuck in through the chicane and getting overtaken again, which makes me think that potentially he's got some damage on that car and he's going to have to manage that. It might be damage limitation for him in terms of the championship points, which is, it's got to be a tough one for him for being, nearly 7 seconds out ahead of the pack. Really, really difficult, as we see Johnny Ogden now up the inside of Josh Martin, which he was poised to do for a long time. And is he going to make it stick? Is Josh going to keep it buried around the outside? He's got it stuck in. Josh Martin comes back out to him.
Interesting now, Cristiano as well all over the back. He's had great recovery, and Alexander up into P9 from P16, so they've had a really good race. Be interested to see if Cristiano follows Jonathan through on Josh down to Cascade. They're going to be on the outside, so Josh could potentially now have the inside and get back that position.
Yeah, definitely, and Johnny giving him plenty of room as he goes out wide and nearly loses the car. So incredible save there from Johnny Ogden. Fair play to him. He might have lost a position, but he's not all over yet. I think that shows the real true race driver inside of him, to have them snap reactions, to be able to catch that guy on the grass. That's not easy to do, and we've seen other drivers fall foul of it. So a big well done there to Johnny Ogden as he collects himself. You have to tuck back in, and that might be quite an interesting one for him. I'm sure he's slightly nervous off the back of that one, as we see Cristiano Bettini now really trying to get stuck in and make some tracks off the back of this. All three of these drivers very equally matched in terms of pace, and do you know what, really showing some great sportsmanship between each other. I think they all know that they don't want to wipe each other out. They can push forward and maybe make the moves, but Josh Martin now 9 seconds off of third place, sorry. So this could be the difference between 4th, 5th and 6th being answered for here.
Yeah, indeed, as we see Alexander now join the back of this queue. But what a save from Jonathan. You can see now he's sliding around quite a bit. That just makes me think potentially he's scuffing his tyres from that. And they're starting to go off ever so slightly. But yeah, I think after that moment, the bum was definitely twitching. But, you know, still 3 minutes to defend and potentially go after Josh. So we'll wait and see how he plays it. But yeah, this battle is certainly treating us tonight, as we see Kyle just building that gap up to 2 seconds. Oh, as we see Cristiano, bit of contact at the hairpin there.
Yeah, well, what's really interesting is Alexander managed to gain 2 seconds on that pack. So where we were discussing the driver battles here, it's very obvious to see that that's cost a lot of these drivers some time, and allowing other drivers to get onto the back of the train here and really get stuck in and show what they can do. So it'd be interesting to see what they can do for the rest of the race, as Carl Velvers has checked out by nearly 5 seconds, which is an incredible feat, bearing in mind he started on the back of the grid. Be it luck or be it just driving prowess here, he's definitely showing a masterclass on how these cars should be driven and how to make your way through a pack. As if it's completely honest, Sciurti is just hasn't got an answer for him from the World Racing Team, as Johnny Ogden is off. And Alexander Link, maybe them two came together, as Thomas Potter's up now to 6th place, so he's made a recovery there. Oh, that's real terrible news for him, as Josh Martin's almost got a get out of jail free card here. I think he was under pressure from the 2 drivers, and those 2 have clearly come together. Whether that was on a last minute tussle or a late dive into one of the corners, we'll have to go back and look at that in the replays. But yeah, Josh Martin now getting the get out of jail free card here, as he now needs to try and build a gap to Bettini, because we know Bettini's a fast driver, and potentially might just drive up onto the back of him here. Josh obviously probably pushed his tyres quite a bit in terms of defence and overtaking and attacking drivers in front of him, so be interesting to see what happens.
Unfortunately, I was funnily enough, I was watching the battle at the time. It was actually Cristiano that went up the inside of Jonathan, which ended up turning Jonathan, and Alexander was a complete innocent bystander. As Johnny rolled back off the circuit, he had nowhere to go and had to check up as we move on to the penultimate lap of the race. Kyle just out front, just doing his thing.
Yeah, it's a difficult one there, as Jordan Osborne here now on the back of Alex Forster, only 3/10 behind him. He might be able to make the opportunity coming into this last corner. He's just a little bit far away, so he's going to tuck in behind again and just see what he can do, potentially into the first corner if he can get the run. Looks like they're equally matched coming in down the straight here. Might be able to tuck in, and then potentially if he can get the drive off of the second corner here, be able to get the run. A lot of drivers running wide onto that AstroTurf on the outside. Some keep him within track limits, some not. So that might be something that plays pivotal in terms of post-race analysis and penalties that might come in for certain drivers for potentially exceeding track limits here. So it might not all be lost for some certain drivers, as Jordan Osborne really tucks in behind him. This is what he needed. If he can get the drive out the corner, he can really start to push towards him. As Cristiano Bettini now right on the back of Josh Martin, as we discussed before. Josh looks like he's really struggling with the rear end of that car and getting it quite squirrely. He's going to have to go really defensive at the end of this race here, as Carl Felvers with a 5-second lead. Is he going to go on to the last lap here? Should be +1 lap, so
yes.
Yeah, so 19.9 as his last lap. So go back to the race between Bettini and Josh Martin.
Yeah, interestingly, Josh went a little deep into the chicane, which makes me think potentially, the concentration in these cars is absolutely immense. Potentially dropping off there, all the tyres are going off 12, they are soft compound tyres, even though the drivers were saying it's good. You never know how some drivers drive differently, but yeah, this will treat us for the final lap of the race. Cristiano's got to be sensible here, but Josh, I don't think he's going to give that position up easy, so it'll be really interesting to see as we see Thomas Potter lose it in the background.
Yeah, and that's a tough evening's worth of racing for Thomas Potter here, but these things are going to happen. This is where the consistency comes in, and we spoke about this in terms of management of tyres and managing the car and managing the bumps as Carl Felvers comes up onto a back marker. Bettini now only a 10th off of Josh Martin, and these two are going to go down to the final lap and really to the last corner potentially, as Carl Felvers rounds himself out for the second to last corner. This is a dominant victory for him if he can make these 2 last corners stick. the last corner stick now, and almost made it look easy from the back of the pack as he pushed up on the back of the back marker, and it's Carl Felvers with a dominating win. So big congratulations to him. Visciurti coming across the line just didn't have what he needed to chase after Kyle, just didn't have the pace as Andrea Ruggi takes the final podium position in third. Josh Martin just holding off from Bettini, and it's going to be a drag race down to the line here. Oh, side by side across the line, but Josh Martin just holds on, and that's a cracking battle between the two as we see Alexander Link in 6th, Johnny Ogden in 7th, Thomas Potter with a recovery drive in 8th, and that's a real shame for him with such a dominating lead that he managed to pull out. It's a real tough one for him, and I'm sure he's going to be kicking himself off the back of it. Unfortunately, this is one of these things where, you know, one slight lapse of concentration and, you know, you can exit stage left or exit stage right and really ruin your race. So yeah, I'm sure he's going to be kicking himself on that one, but that started to heat up in the last few moments of that race, and a big congratulations to the top 3 and especially Carl Felvers here that's taken the dominating win, and what a way to kickstart his campaign.
Yeah, it was a brilliant drive from Kyle. I mean, it caught us by surprise, didn't it, after lap 1 when he was P9 from, what, 24th? It was a great start, and like he said, he just stayed out of trouble and brought it home. So, yeah, a great way to start his campaign, as well as bringing home the fastest lap as well. Alessandro and Andrea also doing a really good job to finish out the final podium positions, and Josh doing well to hang on. He had a little half spin at the hairpin on that final lap, so he did well to defend from Cristiano and Alexander.
Yeah, definitely. And so we're going to go to an ad break now and let the drivers drive back to the pit lane and finish their cool down laps, and look forward to speaking to the top 3 off the back of this. So we'll see you in a moment.
Hi everyone, welcome back after the ad break. So some tremendous racing in the second race. I'm going to talk to Andrea Ruggi first. Absolutely mega race, finishing in P3. You must be happy with that. Talk us through the opening few laps. You're just saying about the absolute carnage that it was. How did you find it making your way through the field?
Yeah, it was pretty shocking because I was going slowly, fortunately, so I was able to avoid all of them. And I make a huge jump, and I'm very happy. At least I could avoid the wall, but Alessandro was very faster than me, and he could overtake me as well, also if I didn't hit the wall.
Yeah, 100%. You did a really good job to survive everything. I think one thing I was going to ask as well is how you finding the cars around the circuit. Obviously, I was doing a bit of testing yesterday, and I found the bumps were tremendously difficult. So it must have been a really tough ask for you to be able to sort of survive 20 minutes without any crucial mistakes.
Yeah, it was very difficult, and I enjoyed it every lap of the race, of the both race, and I like this track actually, and I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, I was very jealous of you driving around there. You looked like you were having a whale of a time. But yeah, well done for tonight. Last question: How are you? How are you? How's the prep going along for Interlagos? Obviously, you probably haven't done much, but how are you feeling about it?
About what? Sorry.
Interlagos second round.
Yeah, I can't wait to jump back in the car and let's see. I didn't drive very much in Interlagos. I drive it maybe just only in Formula One, and so let's see. I will train some laps to do my best.
Brilliant. Well, best of luck until then, and have a great week.
Thank
See you in a bit.
Okay, as we move on to our second place driver, Alessandro. Now, I know there's a slight language barrier here, and I know you wanted someone here to translate for you, but it doesn't seem like he's actually in here. So, just talk us through your race. How was it?
Yeah, I started slowly because a bad accident happened, and I took advantage of it to recover position. Then I recovered the other position with some overtaking, and I arrived second. Congratulations to Andrea and especially to Pelbus.
Yeah, and do you know what? That's a really, really good drive from you, and some really good championship points. And I think off the back of this, it'd be interesting to see what you can do, especially with your team for the rest of the season, and see if you can get them points in the bag and really nail down that championship and potentially take the fight to Carl Felvers for the rest of the championship.
Yes, these are very important points for the championship.
Amazing. Okay, cool. Thank you, Alessandro. Obviously, we'll bring in someone to help you translate for the next one, but we really appreciate you being here. And congratulations on your P2 as we go through to Carl Felvers and Thomas for the winning speech.
Well, Kyle, you said there wasn't the potential that we were going to be back, but what an amazing drive! 5.6 seconds, absolutely commanding win from the back of the grid. You must be pleased with that.
Yeah, good race overall. Like I said at the start, just avoid the carnage. That's exactly what I did. Got a bit of damage on the front and rear wing, but just adapted to it over the laps and then found the pace again and pushed on from there.
Yeah, you look very comfortable, and I know it's definitely not. But how are you feeling going towards Interlagos? Obviously, you've got a nice healthy championship lead, so obviously can't take it any easier. But it must be a relief to know that you've got good pace against the other guys, and you've had a strong start.
Yeah, like I said before, every round, just treat it like a one-time event. Try to maximise points, and then at the end they all add up.
Brilliant. Yes, that's definitely a good way to take it into the championship. Final question I was going to ask: How are you getting on with the F4s? Are you enjoying them?
Yeah, it's a good car. I mean, it's a difficult car. I think a lot of people will struggle with it. It does take a very unique driving style, but if you push them to the limit, they really do favour that. If you try to drive them gently, they don't enjoy it. So you really got to be pushing.
Brilliant. Well done for tonight, and I'm sure I'll have some more conversations with you throughout the season and probably at Interlagos. Best of luck, and yeah, have a good one.
And Kyle, just before you go here, I think we have the discussions around driver of the round, and I think it's quite obvious here for the dominant first race win, and then to go from the back of the pack to the front of the pack. I think there's no choice other than to give you the driver of the round for this round itself here at Oulton Park. So a big congratulations. It's interesting to see you driving, and I'm not driving with you. But yeah, a big well done, and a demanding drive there. I think you showed everyone exactly how it was done. So best of luck for the rest of the season.
Cheers, Joe.
No worries. And that concludes our stream for this evening. I hope you've all enjoyed yourself. Myself and Thomas really appreciate everyone tuning in and getting involved and watching these streams that we do. Obviously, next round is Interlagos, so it's going to be interesting to see what the guys and girls can do there. It's a great night, an entertaining night of racing here at Oulton Park, and we look forward to seeing you at Interlagos next week. So thank you very much for tuning in. All the best. Bye bye.